Welcome to our AITA, the place where a brand new marriage manages to rot before the wedding photo album even comes back from the printer. Today's story is about a man who asked his own wife, in front of her family, if she had gotten rid of the kid yet. Yes. That sentence came out of the mouth of a functioning adult, at least functioning enough to pay bills, drive a car, and apparently turn a Sunday dinner into the Hague with mashed potatoes. The post comes from a guy we'll call Ryan. He's 35. His wife, Melissa, is 32. They got married 4 months ago. Melissa has an 8-year-old son named Caleb from a previous relationship. Ryan says that when he first met Melissa, she always presented herself as a mother first. You know, that kind of person who puts in their bio, coffee, beach, my son, my life. Yeah, except, like a lot of internet bios, there was a delicate little difference between personal branding and reality. A difference the size of a truck reversing into the living room. Ryan says he met Caleb during the 3rd month of dating. Caleb was a quiet, polite, slightly suspicious kid. The kind who watches adults like he's trying to figure out which one is going to ruin the day first. Ryan didn't try to act like a replacement dad. He says he didn't force hugs, didn't buy expensive toys to look like a hero, and didn't jump into that little theater of now we're a perfect family, with expired margarine commercial music playing in the background. He was just kind, kept his distance when Caleb needed space, and over time, the boy started coming around. So far, so good. Almost sweet. You could almost believe this story was going to be about emotional maturity. But then came the wedding. And, as always in his stories, the wedding didn't create the problem. It just took the lid off the pot and let the smell rise. Ryan says that before they got married, Melissa talked a lot about wanting stability for Caleb. She said the boy needed a real home, a routine, a decent stepfather, a safe environment. Ryan had a 3-bedroom house. 1 room was his, 1 was an office, and the 3rd he turned into Caleb's room. He painted it dark blue because the boy liked space, bought a moon-shaped lamp, put up a shelf for his dinosaur books, and had the room ready before the wedding. Caleb cried when he saw it. Not that dramatic soap opera crying, but a small, embarrassed cry, like he was trying to hide the fact that someone had finally remembered he existed too. Ryan says that moment was one of the reasons he felt certain marrying Melissa was the right decision. And here comes the first poisonous hook in this story. Sometimes the mistake isn't trusting the wrong person. The mistake is trusting the version they sell when they still need you. After the wedding, Melissa started to change. First, it was little things. She said Caleb had too much energy to be at the house during the week. Then she said he adjusted better at his father's house. Caleb's father, Eric, had shared custody and, according to Ryan, was present. Not perfect, because nobody is perfect, but present. He took Caleb to baseball practice, helped with homework, showed up for school meetings. So at first, Ryan thought Melissa was just trying to balance the routine, except the balance started looking a lot like abandonment. Wearing expensive perfume, Melissa began canceling the weekends when Caleb was supposed to stay with them. She said she was tired. She said she and Ryan needed couple time. She said Caleb would be more comfortable with Eric. One time, Ryan made pancakes because Caleb had asked for them. Melissa walked into the kitchen, looked at the set table, and said, "You know, he's not coming, right?" Ryan asked why. She answered, without even looking up from her phone, "I told Eric he could keep him. We had plans to go out today." Ryan said they had no plans. Melissa sighed like he had just asked her to solve the country's national debt and said, "Ryan, I just got married. I deserve to enjoy my life too." Beautiful. A perfectly normal sentence. If she weren't using her own child like a gym membership she forgot to cancel. Ryan started noticing that Melissa talked about Caleb in a strange way. Not cruelly in front of other people. In front of others, she was the warrior mother, the lioness mother. The mother who sacrificed everything. The mother who deserved a statue and maybe a documentary with sad music underneath. But at home, when nobody was watching, Caleb became a complication, baggage, drama. The subject that never ends. One night, Ryan heard Melissa talking on the phone with her sister. He wasn't spying. He was in the laundry room grabbing towels, and Melissa was in the living room talking loudly. Because apparently privacy only exists when it benefits the villain of the week. She said, "I just need to figure out the Caleb situation. Once I get rid of that, my life can finally start." Ryan froze. It wasn't. "Once I sort out the school situation, it wasn't. Once custody is more organized, it wasn't. Once he adjusts, it was get rid of that." And that was her son, the 8-year-old boy who slept with a stuffed dinosaur named Walter. Yes, Walter. Even the dinosaur had more emotional stability than that woman. Ryan waited until the call ended and asked, "Did you just call your son that?" Melissa turned to him with that classic expression of someone caught red-handed. Who decides to get offended before anyone can finish the sentence? "Are you listening to my conversations now?" Because, of course. The problem wasn't that she talked about her son like old furniture. The problem was that sound traveled through the air. The audacity of physics. Ryan said he wasn't listening on purpose, but it was impossible to ignore. Melissa rolled her eyes and said he was exaggerating, that it was just an expression. That mothers get tired too, that he didn't know what it was like to be a single mother. Ryan said exhaustion was one thing. Calling your child a disposable problem was another. Melissa started crying. Not the cry of regret, the administrative cry. The kind of crying that appears when someone realizes the conversation isn't going their way and decides to open the emotional faucet to flood the debate. She said, "I just want a chance to be happy." I spent years being a mother before being a woman. Ryan said he understood her wanting happiness, but he didn't understand trying to build it by erasing Caleb from the family map. Melissa answered, "You talk like that because you're not the one with the child tying you to the past." And that's when, according to Ryan, something inside him cracked a little. Over the next few days, he tried to talk calmly. He asked if she was depressed. He asked if she wanted therapy. He asked if she needed help with custody. Melissa always dodged. She said Ryan was making a mountain out of a molehill. She said Caleb was loved, but needed to spend more time with his dad. She said Ryan was judging something he didn't understand. But then Caleb started acting differently. Before, when he came to their house, he would run to see his room, asked if Ryan wanted to play video games, leave drawings on the fridge. Then he started arriving quietly. He apologized for tiny things. He spilled a little juice and said, "Sorry, I know I'm in the way." He asked if he could use the bathroom. He asked if he could sit on the couch. One day, he asked if Ryan would be mad if he left a jacket in the room. Ryan says he felt his stomach turn into cement. He asked why Caleb thought he was in the way. Caleb shrugged and said, "My mom said you two are starting a new life now." Ryan asked, "And you're not part of that?" Caleb looked down and answered, "She said I have another house, and here, my dear people." The story stops being just a bad marriage and starts turning into that beautiful thing Reddit loves. An adult doing reverse therapy on a child. Except without a degree, without ethics, and without shame, Ryan confronted Melissa again. She was furious. She said he was manipulating Caleb against her. She said he had no right to get involved in the relationship between mother and son. She said Ryan was getting too attached to the boy, and that sentence is a red flag so huge you could cover a stadium with it. Ryan asked how he could be too attached to a child who lived in their house half the time. Melissa answered, "Because you're acting like he's yours." Ryan said, "I'm acting like he's a child." And then Melissa went silent. Because some sentences don't need yelling. They arrive, sit on the couch, and start taking the lie apart by themselves. Now, we get to the dinner. Melissa's mother invited everyone over for Sunday lunch. Her mother was there, her stepfather, her sister, her brother-in-law, two cousins, and Ryan. Caleb wasn't there. Melissa had said he would be with Eric because he wasn't feeling well. Ryan later found out that was a lie. But we'll get to that radioactive little trash heap in a bit. During lunch, Melissa's mother started talking about how happy she was. That her daughter had finally found a real man. Always a great start. Nothing says healthy family like a mother-in-law handing out masculinity medals. Between bites of mashed potatoes, Melissa's sister asked if Caleb was adjusting to the new life. Melissa put a hand on her chest, made a sad little face, and said, "It's been hard. Ryan has a lot of trouble accepting that I have a child." Ryan nearly choked on the potatoes. And not from emotion. He asked, "What?" Melissa continued, now using her professional martyr voice, "I try to balance everything. But he wanted it to be just the two of us. I understand, you know? He married me, not my past. My God, my past." Her son became an old photo with bad hair and an embarrassing caption, "Congratulations." Ryan says he stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, wink, confess that it was some extremely stupid social prank. But Melissa kept going. She said Ryan was pressuring her to have Caleb stay with his father more. She said he wanted to turn Caleb's room into an office. She said she was trying to protect her son from Ryan's rejection. That was the moment lunch stopped being lunch and became a morgue for reputations. Ryan put his fork down and asked, out loud, "So, Melissa, have you gotten rid of your son yet? Or are you still trying to blame me first?" Silence. That special family silence. When everyone understands they've just watched a grenade fall into the salad. But nobody knows whether to run or pretend it's decoration. Melissa went white. Her mother asked, "What did you just say?" Ryan said she's been canceling Caleb's days here. She called her son that. She said she needed to get rid of that so her life could start. And now she's telling all of you that I'm the one who wants the boy gone. Melissa started crying. Again, administrative crying. Except now with an audience, so it came in the premium version. With sobbing and trembling hands, she screamed that Ryan was cruel, that he had twisted everything, that get rid of was just an expression, that he was trying to humiliate her. Her brother-in-law said Ryan had crossed the line. Her sister called Ryan a monster for using that phrase. Melissa's mother said he had no right to speak like that to a mother. Ryan answered, "A mother doesn't talk about her child like he's junk." Melissa got up from the table and left crying. Her mother followed her. The stepfather stayed seated, staring at his own plate with the expression of a man who had just found out the Christmas turkey could talk and was asking for help. Ryan left. On the way home, he received a flood of messages. Melissa's sister said he was abusive. Her mother said Melissa was devastated. The brother-in-law said that even if Ryan was right, he chose the worst possible way to say it. Ryan ended the post by asking, "Was I the asshole for asking my new wife, in front of her family, if she had gotten rid of the kid yet?" And look, this is one of those situations where the sentence is horrifying, but the context walks in wearing combat boots, kicks the door open, and says, "Excuse me, I am the reason the horror exists," in the comments. Reddit did what Reddit does best, grabbed a shovel, dug through the story until it found the skeleton, then complained that the skeleton was badly dressed. The top comment said, "You're not the asshole for defending Caleb, but my guy." That sentence was a chainsaw used to cut butter. Did it work? Yes. Was it the ideal tool? Not even close. Another comment said, she tried to turn you into the villain to hide that she was abandoning her own child. You just returned the package with a receipt. A third comment was more direct. Caleb doesn't need a mother who sees him as the past. He needs adults who don't treat him like emotional baggage wearing light-up sneakers. Someone asked, was Caleb at the dinner? Ryan answered, no, if he had been there, I never would have said that. I lost my temper, but not enough to destroy a child in front of everyone. Another user asked, do you have proof of what she said? Ryan responded that he didn't have a recording of the call, but he did have messages where Melissa talked about reducing Caleb's presence in the house, reorganizing his room, and convincing Eric that he would be better as the primary parent. And then came the comment that probably made Ryan freeze, ask Caleb's father what Melissa has been telling him. I'll bet a cold pizza she's telling every person a completely different version. Ryan said he hadn't thought of that, and naturally, he came back with an update, because none of these stories end before revealing that the basement had another basement. So Ryan posted, update. I spoke to Eric. According to Ryan, after reading the comments, he messaged Eric. He was polite. He said he needed to talk about Caleb and didn't want to create drama, but he was worried. Eric answered almost immediately. Finally, that word alone should come with a siren. Eric said Melissa had been trying for weeks to convince him to take Caleb full-time, but not in a healthy way, with agreements, conversations, school planning, routine. She said Ryan couldn't stand Caleb. She said the marriage was at risk because Ryan wanted to build a real family. She said Caleb was suffering in their house because Ryan was cold toward him. Eric found it strange, because Caleb always spoke well of Ryan, but Melissa insisted so much, cried so much, and said so many times that Ryan didn't want the boy around, that Eric started wondering if maybe Caleb was just trying to please the adults. And here's the part that makes your blood pressure climb. Melissa had also told Caleb that Ryan preferred he live with his father. Yes, she didn't just try to blame Ryan to the adults. She planted it in the child's head. Because apparently, if you're going to make a child feel discarded, why not tie a bow on it and turn it into handmade trauma? Eric said Caleb had been asking strange questions. He asked if Ryan still liked him. He asked if he had done something wrong. He asked if new marriage meant mothers had to choose. One time, before bed, Caleb asked his father, when mom gets rid of me, can I still see Ryan? Ryan says he read that message 3 times and had to sit down, his sentence at dinner. The sentence everyone called monstrous was literally the sentence Caleb had already internalized. The boy already thought he was being gotten rid of. Ryan just didn't know he had arrived late to the fire. Eric also showed him a screenshot of an email Melissa had sent to the school. In it, she asked what documents would be needed to change Caleb's primary address and remove Ryan from the list of authorized contacts. Because recent family changes have made the living arrangement unstable, Ryan had never been told, never agreed, never been consulted. But, of course, why consult the man you're using as a cardboard villain? He might start talking, and a useful villain is a silent villain. Ryan confronted Melissa that night. She was at her mother's house. First, she denied it. Then she said Eric was exaggerating. Then she said Ryan had no right to speak to Eric behind her back. Then, when she realized Ryan had screenshots, she changed tactics and said, I was trying to do what was best for everyone. Ryan asked, everyone or you? Melissa answered, you don't know what it's like to feel like your life ended at 24. Because you had a child. Ryan said he felt sorry for her for a second. Not sorry enough to forget Caleb, but sorry. Because there she was, a woman who maybe really was resentful, exhausted, regretful, trapped in a life she didn't know how to admit she hated. But the problem with broken adults is that they don't get a free pass to use children as emotional trash cans. Trauma explains. It does not absolve. That sentence should be embroidered on a pillow and thrown at a lot of people. Ryan told Melissa they needed to pause the marriage and seek therapy immediately. She answered, you're choosing my son over me. And that, my dear people, is when the coffin of the relationship shut with steel hinges. Ryan replied, no, I'm choosing not to destroy a child to protect your image. Melissa hung up. The next day, Ryan's mother-in-law came to his house. She wanted to talk. She said Melissa was devastated that Ryan had humiliated her daughter, that no mother is perfect. Ryan asked if Melissa had told her everything. His mother-in-law said yes. Ryan showed her the messages. He showed her the email. He showed her the conversations with Eric. She read everything in silence, according to Ryan. Her face changed. It wasn't anger. It was that discreet panic of someone realizing they defended the wrong person, with far too much confidence, and now has no emotional receipt for an exchange. She asked quietly. She said that to Caleb. Ryan showed her Eric's message. His mother-in-law started crying for real. Not administrative crying. Grandmother crying. Realizing her grandson had become collateral damage in her daughter's reinvention project. She apologized to Ryan. She said Melissa had always struggled with motherhood, but she thought it was exhaustion. She said that after Melissa had Caleb, she often talked about losing her youth, losing opportunities, losing freedom. The family thought it was just venting. And here we have a very useful lesson. When someone vents the same cruelty for 8 years, maybe it's not venting. Maybe it's an instruction manual. The mother-in-law called Melissa in front of Ryan and asked if it was true that she had told Caleb Ryan didn't want him. Melissa exploded on the phone. She said everyone was against her. She said Ryan had turned her family against her. She said Caleb was an anchor and nobody had the courage to admit it. There it was. The word came out, Anchor. An 8-year-old child promoted from that to anchor. The saddest career path in the world. Ryan said that, at that moment, he stopped trying to save the marriage. He called the lawyer, not to fight for Caleb because legally he had no parental rights. He knew that, but to protect himself, separate assets, and start the divorce process. He also sent Eric a message saying that if he needed anything for Caleb, like testimony about the home environment, messages, history, he would help. Then came the final update. Eric filed to review custody. Melissa, when she realized her family was no longer buying her version, switched characters again. Now, she said she was in crisis, that she needed understanding, that everyone was being cruel for judging her. She started posting quotes about overwhelmed mothers on social media. Those beige background posts with text saying nobody sees the pain of a tired mother. Yes, Melissa, nobody sees it, except the child you called an anchor, the ex-husband who received the emails, your current husband with the screenshots, your mother listening to the call, and half of Reddit morally camping outside your door. Ryan said he doesn't hate Melissa. That part is important. He said he thinks she needs help, but he also said help cannot come at the cost of Caleb continuing to be crushed. He canceled the delayed wedding reception. He packed Melissa's things and left them at her mother's house. He kept Caleb's room intact for now, even though he knew the boy might never sleep there again. And then, the following weekend, Eric asked if Ryan would be willing to meet Caleb for an hour at a park. Ryan was afraid of seeming intrusive, but he agreed. Caleb arrived holding Walter, the dinosaur. He sat on the bench beside Ryan and stayed quiet for a few minutes. Then he asked, "Were you mad at me?" Ryan said, "No, not for 1 second." Caleb asked, "Did you want me to go away?" Ryan answered, "No, I wanted the adults to stop lying to you." Caleb looked at the ground and said, "My mom said you would have a better life without me." Ryan answered, "Adults say wrong things when they're trying to run from their own guilt. That doesn't make you a problem." Caleb cried. Ryan cried too. And Walter, apparently, was the only steady man at that emotional table, because he kept the same traumatized dinosaur face but stable after that. Caleb handed Ryan a drawing. It was Ryan's house with 3 windows. In one window was Ryan, in another was Caleb. In the third, there was only a closed door. Above the door, Caleb had written, "Maybe." Ryan said he took the drawing home and put it on the fridge. Not as a promise, not as an attempt to replace anyone, but as a reminder that sometimes a child is not asking you to save the world. He is asking you not to participate in its destruction. In the final comments, Reddit was almost unanimous. One user wrote, "You didn't destroy your marriage. You turned on the light and discovered it was already full of roaches." Another said, "Melissa didn't want a husband. She wanted a false witness." Another comment went straight for the liver. She tried to abandon her child, without looking like the mother who abandoned her child. So, she invented a villain. The villain made the terrible mistake of speaking, and the best comment, in my opinion, said, "Were you rude? Yes. Were you the asshole? No." Sometimes the sentence is ugly because the truth it's carrying is worse. So, verdict. Ryan gets 0 out of 5 assholes for the intention, and maybe half an asshole for the sentence used at lunch. Because, my friend, that was a verbal grenade with glitter cruelty. But honestly, after finding out Melissa was using her own son as a disposable object, and still trying to hang the blame on her husband, that half-asshole is suspended on probation. Drinking coffee in the corner of the room, Melissa gets 4.5 out of 5 assholes. Not a full 5 because she clearly needs psychological help, but 4.5 because needing help does not give you permission to turn a child into a scapegoat with a backpack. Her family gets 1 collective asshole for buying the first version without asking a single question. Eric gets 0 for protecting Caleb as soon as he realized the truth. And Caleb gets protection, therapy, stability, and, if the universe is even a shred of shame, pancakes. Moral of the story: when someone says they want to start a new life, pay attention to who they are trying to erase from the old one. Because some people don't want to start over. They want to clean up the scene of the emotional crime before the witnesses learn how to speak. And now I want to know from you, did Ryan cross the line by exposing Melissa like that at lunch? Or did he only say out loud what everyone needed to hear before Caleb was thrown out of his own life? Like broken furniture?